Well, howdy y'all. This is Farmer John here at the ranch property, Rio Bravo, Texas, South Texas. It is a hot one this year. At the time of recording, it's supposed to be springtime, but it feels like summer. Yep, it's getting warm faster, or earlier, longer. It's lasting even longer nowadays, and it's becoming more intense. So we got to start planting some crops in this here bare ground to cool us property off. And the only way we're going to get ready for that is if we clear out this ground of all the debris. So I laid out them tools out there. Got a rake on the left hand side, I got a pickaxe and a hoe in the middle, and I got just a regular shovel on the right hand side. I said the rake was on the left, right? Yeah, it's like laying there on the left hand side. We're going to go this step by step, sorry. Step one being the rake. Step two is using the pickaxe to get out any roots, tree roots, stumps, or whatever. And if we have to use an axe, well, that's optional. That's situational, actually. And the hoe, the regular hoe, is going to be used to line out our sowing lines. Yeah. And just as I'm pointing this camera, that's directly where the sun is facing. It's kind of diagonal. Yes, it's diagonal with the property, so the fence line, as you can see in the background, is you'd say is east to west, following parallel with the road, but it's not really. The sun rests on the west side, right? So it's not true east and west. We're going to follow the sun, and we're going to be lining out our sowing grounds, our lines, parallel with the sun. We're going to follow the sun's pattern. We're going to be going like that, long ways. And lastly, we're going to use the shovel to move any excess dirt, level off any of the ground that we need to. It's kind of bumpy, it's kind of dipping in some areas, like trenches. And actually, we're going to start thinking about permanent long-term fixes, like swales and little trenches to catch water in the future. As you may know, down here in South Texas is basically like a desert. It's like semi-arid desert climate for Zone 9B. But every year it's getting hotter and hotter. It's just part of global warming. Believe it or not, it's getting hotter and hotter, folks. So we've got to think about the future. We've got to think about some organic and permaculture techniques that'll help us in the long run. So look at all this bare ground. We've got to put something living in it to keep it from not being bare, so it's not so damn hot here. That's the mindset that we're going to be working with. Of course, everything's changeable. Nothing's going to be permanent, so let's get started. Just a quick note before I get started here. As you can see in the foreground, there's a lot of debris, and in the background, just underneath that tree, there is a little circle of an area that has debris and a space in between that looks like road, like paved road. There's not so much debris there. That's because we kind of dragged a giant rake, which is basically a piece of angle iron, to flatten out the land, and that's why there's not so much debris there in the middle. We're going to be focusing on the foreground, this piece here in front of me. We're going to be raking by hand all these twigs, bark, leaves, and whatnot. Clearing this out, getting it nice and clean, and we're going to go off from there. So let's get started. Alright, it's starting to look a little bit better. You know, there are some tree trunks sapling trunks there, roots and whatnot. They're in the middle. I'm going to knock those out with a pickaxe or something, or bury them. But what I'm trying to do with all this debris is mulch the nearby trees, the mesquite trees that are nearby. For instance, if I can move you real quick, pushed up all this debris right here and I hugged it around this mesquite right here. I did the same for, let me loosen this thing real quick. There we go. I did the same for those cactuses back there. Yeah, and I mulch the cactus, you know, so they can get their moisture. Oof. It is hot outside. Partly cloudy, but you know, mostly sunny for the most part. It's mostly sunny. Sweating. What I'm gonna do is move all that wood on the back side of that tree so I can keep on mulching it. So let's go over there and do that. That looks a lot better. Now we gotta just dig in our sowing area, our sowing lines. You see that shadow that's in the foreground right here, closest to us? That's where we're gonna follow the sun's pattern. That's where the sun is setting right there, and that's how we're gonna shape our sowing beds, diagonal, just like that. Let's do it. Well, there you have it, folks. That's a 16 by 16 plowed area right there with a, oh, come on. Yep, he had to do it, huh? No, it's alright. We're not going to be planting right now, today at least. But it's there, you know, it won't be washed away too easily unless we get like a flood or a lot of rain, which, you know, almost never happens. So what we're going to do, thank you also. Thank you. Yeah. Crazy. What we might sow here is grass, or you know, some flowers, something that isn't too desperate for space or room or anything, who isn't too picky on its location. So as long as something goes in there and grows, like that's all that we're trying to achieve here is growth, vegetation, living matter, organic matter in this soil, because the longer it stays here barren, the worse it gets, the more it degrades into arid soil, which has like no nutritional value, has no, the soil food web is completely barren, destroyed. It's going to take a lot of amendments like compost and organic matter to bring it back to life, and that's an investment that, you know, every place should have. I don't want to put my work and energy into something that's not going to give me you know, fruits for my labor. What I'm doing now is just prepping it. Now what we're going to do is something that I think would help it a lot. And I'm going to tell you about it, but you will see. Hold on. Well, there you go, folks. It's a perimeter, a bed. No, not a bed, but a wall around the sowing bed, the sowing area. A bunch of dead logs, branches, wood, trunks, things that have been eaten out by termites or just left there to rot. Very dry stuff until it rains. When it rains, that stuff's going to soak it up and act like a sponge. It's kind of a takeoff of hugelkultur, but really it has none of the functionality of a hugelkultur. Hugelkultur beds ask that you bury all this wood under the ground and have it partially submerged, or not submerged, but partially surfacing. Yeah, like at least half of it has to be under the ground and the other half is on top where the bed is, and it acts like a perimeter if you use it that way. Or inside the middle of the sowing area, let me see, this area is where the wood would hang out, buried underneath, and over time it breaks down and feeds the bed for the plants above. But I just use it as a little perimeter right there, just because should anything mess up the soil area. I got it marked out, laid out where it's going to be, and they're just there for markers, really. So disregard all that I said about hugel culture, unless you didn't know. But yeah, on to the next step. Doing on the floor. Alright, this is the last little bit. Got 4 piles of that other compost pile. It's dry as a bone, so I'm spreading over this here thin layer of leaves. Oak leaves will probably, if it ever rains here, help retain the moisture. So let's go even them out. That's a little better. Some areas are higher than others, but when it rains, it'll kind of settle itself down, and that's what's gonna happen. A couple hours away from sunset. Still pretty hot out. It feels like 80 degrees, but not bad. Not bad. Next time we're gonna do a hugel culture bed, and we're gonna find some more logs. I got a wood pile over there, right behind the wheelbarrow. And earlier in the video, that's what you saw behind the tree, and then a bunch of old logs, branches that fell off trees. And up there in the brush, I got some old trees that have been knocked down, and a lot of their branches are just hanging there, and I just gotta pull them off, and they're pretty dead too. When I say dead stuff, it's like this here. Oh, can you see that? It's here. It's dead stuff. It's hollowed out. It's been eaten by stuff. It's rotting away. That's what we're gonna bury under the ground, about 4 feet under the ground. So it's gonna take a lot of work. We're gonna bust that out of one day because, you know, we can do it. We can do it. But alrighty, folks, thanks for joining me, and thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm gonna go back home, get a shower, and get some water in me because I am tired, hot, and sweaty. Till next time, everyone.